Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever this video finds you today. And we're going to be talking today about vision. So that's a series of videos we'll be doing. So we're just going to wait here for just a few seconds, let live people come on board. And for those of you who watch the replay, again, by all means, thank you, and leave your comments, questions, thoughts, ideas, whatever, and I will definitely appreciate those and get back to you where you have a question or a comment. So it's another beautiful day up here in Northwest Montana. It's one of those things where several times during the year, you just become aware that things are changing. Like yesterday, it was after 6 p.m. and the sun was shining, and that's really kind of a nice thing to see after a long snowy winter. So welcome, Shiraz. It's good to see you there. All right, well, we're going to go ahead and get started. We're a minute past top of the hour, so we'll get going. Today, what I'm going to be covering today is the first of the steps in creating a vision. Now, just to go back and do a little bit of a recap on the distinction between vision and purpose. You see, purpose is the external manifestation of your vision. In other words, purpose is how you show up in the world. It's how people see you. It's the legacy you leave, the impact you make, the difference you make. It's how you deliver your unique personal value to the world. That's purpose. Now, vision, on the other hand, is internally focused. Vision is the journey to who you are to become. And purpose is the journey to what you are to contribute to the world as a whole. So that's the difference between purpose and vision. And the reason that's very important is because, generally speaking, most of the time, you need to define your purpose first. You have to get in touch with your purpose. And that's what we have covered in the prior videos in this series, among other things. So your purpose is really that emotionally engaging set of desires that push you to become more. Remember, a purpose pushes you, but a vision pulls you. So when you have your purpose pushing, your vision pulling, that's the best of all worlds. So today we're going to talk about vision. So vision is usually derived, created from your purpose. And once again, reiterating that your purpose does not need to be perfect. It merely has to reflect the emotionally significant desires you have to make a difference in the world, to create something bigger than yourself at the present time, and to move forward in life towards a vision of becoming the person who is worthy, deserving, and capable of delivering the value to the world in the form of your purpose. So purpose usually precedes vision. Now, there are those who have a vision of who they want to become. They have an idea, and so then they go looking for a platform and a route, if you will, a vehicle to deliver a purpose that will allow them to achieve the vision of who they want to become. That does happen. It's usually quite rare, because ultimately you always come back to your purpose, and people are always seeking purpose. So what we're going to be doing is covering a process. So achieving your vision is the logical part of all of this. If purpose has emotion engagement behind it, it's got a very strong emotional component, then vision also is emotional because it is tied to purpose. But in crafting your vision, in deciding what it is you must become, the steps that you have to take to get there, see, now we're into the logic part of this. And this is where you, as the entrepreneur or anybody who seeks to become more, really has to sit down and do the homework. You see, success in life is, generally speaking, not an accident. It is a process whereby you plan to succeed in some make, shape, way, or form. And that is really seriously how it happens. So what we're going to do is go back over this process. Now, I'm going to try to share my screen real quickly. Just, no, can't do it. Okay, I'm locked out of screen sharing mode. Okay, well, what I'll do is, after this video is over, I will go ahead and upload a presentation. It's a very short presentation, and it shows what I'm going to describe right now. And it is this. You see, when you're crafting your vision, we have what I call a vision triangle. So it's a triangle like this. At the very top is vision. Then right below vision is goal or goals. Right below goals is objectives. Right below objective is means. That's MEANS. Right below that is execution. And right below that is results. So there are 6 layers to this triangle. And the lower 5 are actually the equation for purpose. So purpose gives rise to vision. Now, the reason that vision is at the top of the triangle is because it is so tightly tied to your purpose and how you achieve that purpose. So consequently, that's why the triangle has vision at the top. You could take the lower 5 elements, which are goals, objectives, means, execution, and results, and replace that with a single layer called purpose. The result is the same. But here's the beauty of this triangle that I'll share with you in a document later. It works whether you put purpose at the top of it or vision at the top of it. These are the elements of the formula that allow your mindset to adapt to the changes that you induce or that the world induces into your life. Now, keeping in mind that mindset is what? Mindset is your life operating system that gives you clarity of vision, purpose, thought, action, and results, facilitates and adapts to change, and promotes growth in multiple areas of your life. And it's this module that we're talking about today that is so central to the ability of the mindset formula that I just described to adapt to your life and to continue to be your life operating system and your mindset of life. So what we do is we're going to talk about the first of the steps today, which are goals. Now, vision is who you are to become in your journey to becoming, right? Becoming more, to becoming that person who can deliver that purpose to the world. So that's an internally focused journey. So that's you creating a greater version of yourself. So that's sitting up here at the top. That's the vision. That's what we focus on becoming. Because, you know, if we don't work on becoming more than we are, generally we get stuck. And we don't develop the skills and the intuition and the insight and the wisdom to allow us to play the larger role in the world that we need to play. So vision is a very big deal. And it sits at the top of the pyramid for that very reason, top of the triangle. So the first layer that we talked about, goals. Now, take your purpose. Once you have defined your purpose through the prior process that we talked about, you have to visualize that purpose. You have to put a picture in your mind of the people who are on the receiving end of your purpose. That may be children, adults, broad population spectrum in general. It may be animals. It may be infrastructure in a community. It may be your church. It could be anything. The focus of your purpose. You have to see that purpose having been delivered, see the people receiving the benefit of your purpose, and you have to kind of immerse yourself in what they're feeling and what they're thinking and what they're seeing and what they're experiencing and the benefits that they have received. Then feel what you feel like for having done that. Okay, that's a really big deal. Okay, and the reason you want to do that is because when you can visualize what your purpose has done for others and how you feel about that, then you have the ability to start putting together what is required to achieve that. This is where some people get hung up. Some of the key entrepreneurs you see out there in the world have gone through this process a number of times, and when they fail to do it, they fail, and then they start over, and eventually they learn what I'm teaching you right now. But it's really important that you put purpose in the forefront of your mind as to what it is the people on the receiving end of your efforts will receive. So once you're able to do that, once you're able to just put a very clear picture in your mind, or even write it out on paper, that's even better, then you have an idea of what the deliverable is. In other words, what people are receiving and benefiting from. Now you start putting the process together of what you have to do to deliver that. And so the first layer of the triangle that we're going to cover today, and we'll do the other 4 layers in the subsequent sessions, is about goals. Now, goals can scare people, and for good reason. People put a lot of emphasis on goals, and it's kind of like making a decision. They tell you that a decision is cutting off all options and just going straight through to whatever it is you're pursuing, regardless of what's on either side of your vision. And as I explained in the decision part of this, that's kind of nutty. It may work in certain circumstances and for certain environments, but in the entrepreneurial world, that's not the definition of a decision that we work to. So, and the same is true of goals. You know, people tend to write goals in a very restrictive manner such that they are forced to make a decision to leave everything else out of their life. That's not how we operate in the environmental space, especially in the 21st century, where you've got things changing ever so rapidly in technology and culture and mores, and you name it. It's changing too rapidly to have a solid, locked-in channel vision. You've got to be a little bit hemispherical about this. So when we're talking about goals, I do use that SMART acronym, and don't want you to get hung up on that. You know, that's the specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. All of that's important. Relevance is definitely important. You want to have it relevant, the purpose you're trying to achieve. So when you're defining a goal that supports your purpose, you got to make sure that you're congruent with what that purpose is. And this is why I believe you have to put a vision in your mind of the target audience, whoever it is that's receiving the benefit of your entrepreneurship, and be able to write down and articulate what it is that they get out of this whole deal. Because you want to make sure you're relevant and congruent in the process of delivering that. Otherwise, you're going to spin your wheels, burn up a lot of emotional time and focus and money, and that's not where you want to be. So that gives you the ability to identify a goal that is specific to the purpose you're trying to deliver. It is measurable and, of course, attainable. Attainable is one of those things where you have to kind of ask yourself, can you push yourself further than what you think? You know, that's one of the reasons that I don't necessarily adhere to the SMART goal strategy. I like to use it because it's got nice little compartmentalized definitions. But the attainable part, you have to go as far as your comfort level will take you and then some. And it grows over time. But you have to make sure that this is a goal you can attain that will support your purpose. It has to be relevant. We've talked about that. And time-bound. Now, the reason that we put time into the process at this step is this. Your vision has no time limit on it. You will continue to grow. Your vision of who you will become going forward in this journey will continue to grow and change. That is not a static phenomenon. In other words, whatever your vision of who you are to become is today, who you believe that you need to become to achieve this purpose, a year down the road, that vision will change. And for the reasons I've articulated earlier, it's because you become more. You have gained an experience, capability, talent, wisdom, skill, all of that. So your vision expands. You cannot hold it back. That's why we don't put a time limit on the attainment of our vision, because it's a moving target. But when we come down to the goals of delivering your purpose to the world, the goal, the very top layer of that triangle below the top, which is vision, has a time limit on it. That time limit is to give you time clarity, so that you know that there is a window of time in which you desire to, and in fact must, deliver your purpose to the world. Otherwise, time gets away. As time gets away, so too does your enthusiasm and your passion. So you have to monitor very closely that emotional engagement that you have in this purpose. And you got to move quickly so that you don't lose the energy behind that. So that's why the goal has a time element in it. That time element drives down into the other layers of the triangle that we'll be talking about as we go into the next sessions. And once again, I'll upload to this post a link to a document. It's a couple, 3 pages that'll show these triangles that I'm referring to. And I'll annotate them so that they're a little clearer. I couldn't share my screen, otherwise I'd be showing them to you. So the goals are really critical in that format. So that's the typical one. You can look up that definition of specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-bound, and there's some variations on that. That's a good Google exercise. time and specificity and relevance are really the critical elements of that. Now let's talk about the number of goals. You got to keep it simple. Life can get complicated really fast in the 21st century, especially with prevalence of all gizmos and electronic devices we have at our disposal to make sure that we have attention deficit disorder to an unmeasurable degree. In other words, our attention bank account is bankrupt almost every day. You want to keep the number of goals you're focused on to attain your purpose to an absolute minimum. If you could get away with one, that's great, but never ever go more than 5. You can't process more than that in an effective means. Now these goals, as I say, they have to be relevant to whatever your purpose is, and since I can't articulate your purpose, you'll have to sit down and actually pencil that out. But if your purpose, as an example, is to help displaced animals, you want to create an animal sanctuary, a place where displaced animals of any type can be sent, where they'll be healthy, they'll be safe, and they can live long lives. Okay. Well, one of the goals you may have is to identify a property, some real estate that is zoned and capable of taking that type of venture. That's a goal. So you have to identify that. You have to go buy it, and then you have to equip it. Okay, these are examples of goals that would be relevant to the purpose of creating an animal sanctuary. You can fill in whatever purpose you have there. You want to keep the number of goals to an absolute minimum. You can add them as you go forward, but within the time period that you have control over, like the next 6 months, next year, that's really where you put your focus on these goals. That way your purpose doesn't start to appear as if it's unattainable. You got to take the baby steps. Now, how this plays into vision, we're going to get, as we go down the layers, that will become more obvious. But here's one of the things that very oftentimes happens in this process. When you start thinking about these goals that are necessary to bring about your purpose, you start questioning, do you know enough? Do you have the skill set to do this? Do you have the emotional energy, the focus, the determination, the certainty in your life that you can make this happen? See, these are all the things that you're going to go through, and that's absolutely healthy. And this goes back to the attitude module that we talked about earlier. You've got values, beliefs, feelings, thoughts, actions, results. All that plays into the category of attitude. You're going to encounter doubt. When you do, that's healthy. That's a signal that you have to sit back, look at what the root of that doubt is, and then solve it. What do you need to do to overcome that doubt? Because that is one of the elements, one of the key elements that you need to achieve to attain your vision. That's why this process is so important, because as we go through this process, you will see time and time again that you're going to be asking yourself questions. You're going to be asking, can I do this? Am I going to be successful? What do I need to do to be able to go out and research the land for this animal sanctuary? What communication skills do I need? What kind of leadership skills do I need? What kind of influence skills do I need? All of this is part of getting to that, who am I to become as a person to deliver the purpose? So that's going to happen as we move through all of these layers. Now this, as I said, is the one part of this mindset of life that is very logic oriented. This is a process. This is a business process that I'm describing. And it's one that I've used for decades through a number of different international ventures. It works. The reason it works is because it's a simple, logical step of going from a problem to a solution. And that's why, as an entrepreneur, it is so important, because it brings clarity. It's part of the mindset of life because it brings clarity. You have to go through this process. You can't shortcut it. And one of the reasons that entrepreneurs fail, and in particular, the solo entrepreneur, the home-based business entrepreneur, the reason they fail for lack of clarity. And the module that I'm talking about right now is clarity. This is bringing clarity into your life. It's forcing you to sit down and think through the process, to think through the steps, to think through the lessons of life that you've got to learn to deliver the purpose on the other end. So this is a way of maximizing the probability of your success. And it's pertinent, relevant to organizational entrepreneurs as well, which is where I use this for the most part 30 years. So it's one of those processes that is universally adaptable to anything you do in life. Now, we've talked about entrepreneurship, but if you were, for example, working on your health, if your purpose in life is to be really healthy so that your family can continue to depend on you, the same process is going to work. You're going to go through the same goals, then you're going to go down to the strategic objectives, the things you have to attain in order to reach that goal. Then you're going to move down to the means, which are tactical, which is what do you need to do specifically so that you can achieve those milestones, take that hill in the battle for better health, and that's the means. And then the executables, which is the what, by whom, by when, and then finally down to the results. So this same process works regardless of what you're doing in life. And it's a powerful process, but it's very simple. So that's why I wanted to cover that today. So that is the first step in the definition of your vision. It's the goals. Keeping it simple. One goal is great if you can narrow it down to that. Let me share something with you in a moment. No more than 5. Okay, so keep it in that range. Now, there are 2 kinds of goals, the category sense. One of them is what I call a unitary goal, which is one goal, and that goal is it's clearly stated. It has just one simple thing you have to do, whatever that may be. But there are also composite goals. These are more complicated, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but sometimes you run into a goal where you just can't narrow it down to one thing. You may say, I want to achieve A, and in achieving A, I get B, C, and D. That's a composite goal. In other words, it contains one or more achievements, all of which can be acquired by taking the same action that it takes to get the one. That's a composite goal. And sometimes you can group things together into a composite goal because they're congruent and they're relevant to one another, and they just mesh. And so that way you don't have to go off and make 12 different goals here, or 5 or 6. You can actually combine it into one. So that's something that you can look at. But anytime you do that, you want to make sure that they are very closely related, that one leads to another, that leads to another, that they have a bridge between them that enables you to achieve all of them for having done the steps to get to the one. So that's a composite goal. So that's the importance of goals in creation of your vision. And once again, just for those who came on late, the triangle we're talking about has vision at the top, and then it has 5 layers below. And those 5 layers are going to be goals, objectives, means, execution, and results. Those 5 layers are the same 5 layers that help you identify your purpose, the details of how to get to your purpose. So you can take those 5 layers out and plug in purpose. It's the same thing. It feeds up into vision. So that's what we're going to talk about today. That's pretty much it for today. And tomorrow we will get into the discussion of the next layer, which is the objectives. And so the preview of that is this. If you want to use kind of a military approach to this, if you're trying to win the war, you need to win the battles. And to win the battles, you need to take the hill or take the bridge, or you need to cross the river. Those are the objectives. Those are the strategic things that you need to do in order to achieve the winning of that particular battle. The battle of life, the battle of entrepreneurship, the battle for better health, whatever you want to call it. So that's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow, is the objectives, the strategic element of fulfilling your purpose. Okay, well, that's it. Well, WJ, Steve, hey, good to see you. Shiraz, thank you again for coming on board. And if you have any questions, thoughts, ideas, and etc., I'll load those in and I'll respond to them. And for those of you coming on the replay, thank you for watching it. And as I said earlier, questions, ideas, thoughts, anything you have, input. Glad to look at them, glad to answer them. Okay, with that, I want to bid you all a great day and have a good one. And we will see you tomorrow when we talk about objectives. Take care.